Hello and welcome to the Scuttlebutt Podcast, the show that will make you a better person, help you think more clearly, make better decisions, and earn more money. How do we do that? Every week I bring you a conversation with a badass vet to explore their unique knowledge. Today is no exception because I'm speaking with Neville Johnson. Neville is the first ex-US vet that I've had on, serving in the British infantry, and the author of the newly published book, Sangin, Then and Now, published by Dead Reckoning Collective. Shout out to Keith and Tyler for helping bring vet writers to the surface. In this conversation, we talk about the value of family and managing one through chaotic times. We talk about how to handle your personal priorities changing, what true defeat looks like, and how that differs from a change in direction. We also get into finding purpose in things outside of our service. Neville mentions that many people want to ask how many doors you've kicked in, but aren't interested in that next phase of all of our lives. Several big lessons there I'll let him uncover. Two quick things. If you like this episode, tell me. Tag me in a post. Keep sharing those. It means a ton. And you can also go subscribe to the newsletter at scuttlebuttpodcast.co. Get a free weekly drop on breakdowns of the episodes and other interesting related content to keep learning. Please enjoy this conversation with Neville Johnson. What is the thing that you are the most proud of?
That's another great question. I would say my family. I'm proud of my family. The fact I've got 3 beautiful young kids and an amazing wife. And they've been through a lot with me. And I would say, I'm the most proud of just them, of what my young kids are, and what they've achieved and what they've been through over the last few years with all the COVID restrictions and lockdowns. And I'm just proud of my little family. Of all the other things I've achieved in life, I would say I'm mostly proud of just my young family. It made me a better person. It made me rich in many ways I thought I would never be.
In what ways, if you don't mind me asking?
Brought me happiness, which I don't always show. It made me feel full. It's filled my cup, so to speak. It made me want to get up in the morning. It was making me want to be a better dad, want to be a better husband, a better partner. It's a moment that I know that I'll never achieve again.
That's really fantastic. I hear very similar things and kind of an extra important topic in my life right now. My wife and I recently just found out that we are pregnant and have got a firstborn on the way. And awesome. It really is. It comes at a time too when we were really deep in discussion about whether we even wanted kids to begin with. And everybody I talked to said, it's this different kind of love that you just don't really know. And I think that I had a really hard time comprehending what that actually meant.
Yeah.
Do you think that you believe that? Like, is it actually different, and is it worthwhile in that way?
I would say yes. I mean, many years ago, we spoke about it, and we just knew it would be the right decision at the time. Obviously, we had no idea that a thing like COVID and those restrictions and what was going through would appear. But at the time, and still, we feel it was the right decision at the time to have a young family, to be together. So I would totally agree. Yeah.
Has there been anything that you have taken away from parenting that you look back on maybe your own childhood and say, oh, I want to do this differently, or want to maybe kind of change a different outcome just based on your experience?
Totally. I would say spend more time with your kids.
Really?
I wish my old man, he would have spent more time. For whatever reason, that wasn't the case. And that's taught me to just spend more time with the kids, put your phone down, spend more time with them, because there will come to a point where they won't ask you to spend time with them. They won't ask you anymore. They won't ask you to go and throw the ball in the park. They won't tap your shoulder and say, Dad, can you please do this? Can you please do that? They will come to a point where they much older, where they won't want to spend time with you. They would rather want to spend time with their friends. And I feel it's told me to, comparing to my childhood, what I've been through, spend more time with your kids, put the phone down, put the devices down, and just listen to them and build that connection. And also the things that you do, they pay attention to you. They're like very small sponges, so they take in all the things that's occurring in the house, my demeanor, if I'm grumpy or if I'm happy, so they take it all in, and that's how they learn It's not so much in what I say to them. It's more so in my actions, what I do. So they'll copy that. So it's those things that I try to implement in trying to be a better dad, or a better husband, and fix those things and spend more time, because the moments that you waste, heck, you're not going to get back.
I want to talk about your book a little bit later, but this seems about as apt a time as any to bring up like a specific subject that I had written down to ask you about.
Yep.
You had two poems from your book that really struck a chord with me, and both of them kind of highlight the relationship with your dad. One of them was, he was talking about like, don't waste time. And then like the very next one, you talked about like walking the same path as your dad, like in kind of like I'm guessing kind of a militaristic context. Can you maybe like expand on those a little bit and kind of draw that connection with your kids now?
Yeah, for sure. It was, I think, comparing what I've been through and what I'm going through now, I just try not to waste any opportunity, because I think back then, I've been through various moments where I felt like it was just wasted. I really longed for certain moments, certain times to be with my old man, and I wanted him to ask me things, spend time with me. And a lot of times that weren't the case, purely because he was either away or working or on operational tours back then. That really stayed with me. Those moments, the feelings of him not being there, of not spending time with me, of not having that proper father and son relationship, I think struck a chord with me. He's been there in the past, many times. But then comparing those with what I'm going through now is that I want to be there for my son. I want to be there for my two daughters. I want to be there for my wife. So I'm not saying it was a bad father. I'm just saying I wanted certain moments, and for whatever reason, he wasn't there, if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because obviously a hindsight bias, it kind of really gives us a different perspective about things. You look back and you say, oh, this is actually what was really important during this circumstance. But during the moments of just kind of going through life, you're kind of maybe just trying to make it. You're just like, well, I don't have time for that at this moment, whether it be maybe your kids, maybe it's a relationship with your family, however that works out. There's a million, usually it's the emotional kind of relationship driven things that suffer the most in those. How do you think about slowing that down and kind of putting that off, that you're like maybe getting behind at work, or you're giving up other things for something that has much longer duration than whatever the temporary thing is that you need to do?
Yeah, totally. It's about slowing down. It's about realizing, heck, I've got to make a choice here. Either I go do things that makes me happy and be selfish about it, or I just focus on things that's going to make us happy as a family. And I think that's crucial. And I've learned so much from my own kids, in the things I do. They make me realize, like, heck, I need to put my phone down, or I need to spend time with them, which is crucial, because the time that I waste, I'm not going to get back. I remember I was in school. I was very young. I remember a teacher saying that to us, saying, you're sitting here, you're mucking around. The time that you waste, you're never going to get back. And that struck a chord. That stayed with me throughout my whole, life. The fact, the things that you're going to waste, if you're not going to get back. I will not be able to go back in time and say, okay, I'm going to then spend time with my son or my daughters or my wife. It's a wasted opportunity.
Do you take that kind of thought process, and if you had to do it all again, would you change or do something different other than your time in service?
That's a good question. I think if I do, I might not be sitting here. I'll be somewhere else. I think I will be in a different location with a different person. I think things would have been vastly different. I don't think I would have joined the British Army. If I could, I would go back and give my younger self maybe some tips, advice on things I've been through, on like how to manage money, on to just forgive and move on, and don't dwell on things in the past, if I could. But I wouldn't change much. because I think a lot of things I've been through, the ups and downs, or most of the downs, it's made me richer. It's made me wiser, I think.
It's really, really easy to like compare outcomes between maybe yourself and other people, or like a historical or maybe like a current hero that you have and like aspire to be. But at the end of the day, like the most important thing is like it's your journey and how much different that is, and like the things that you are having to overcome that's like the value is that right there. It's not actually this end state of wherever you get to. It's kind of, you couldn't be sitting here today without kind of having gone through that, I guess.
No, totally. It's the journey. It's not the end product. It's great to reach and having that trophy or the medal, the book to show, but it's the journey. It's getting there. It's going through the basic training. If it's going through the hardship, and it's the journey. It's not so much the end result. It's me going through parenthood, and it's difficult. It's hard work, but you have to put in the hours with the kids and the family to make it work. But it's the journey, because in the end, my wife and I will be sitting there hopefully, and the kids will be out the house. They've grown up and they've moved on. And that's why for me it's so crucial to enjoy each and every moment, with them, and to cherish those moments, and to be there for them, because it's going to be a point where I don't want to sit there and have regrets saying, oh shit, I should have spent more time with them. I should have done this. I should have done that. That's what I want to avoid. But it's the journey. It's going through that, all those different chapters in my life, all those different books, all those different characters, all those different moments. It's the journey that makes you.
You had this really interesting Instagram post that I really enjoyed and have come back to and looked at several times. It's like this kind of collage of different photos of you like throughout time. And it's like talking about exactly what you're saying. You're kind of like who you are at each one of these individual places, and kind of each person is fighting kind of something different, externally, internally, all of that.
Yeah, it's different characters, from you could say from a book or a film, and it's different. It was a different me back then, the person that I was in when I grew up was different, it's in a character in when I served in the defense force, and the person I'm now, and the single Neville, and it's all different characters in the book, I went through this journey and still going through a journey, but it's all these different characters in the past. Yeah.
Is there a specific trait or part of your life that you think has changed the most? Because obviously we've got all of these different characters, but there's kind of like, maybe you start out with A through Z, and then maybe you change a letter and add a different one, and like the next one, and you kind of have like some residual things that are like consistent throughout. And I'm kind of curious if there is an area maybe that, and maybe take the inverse of that question too, is there something that is still the same about you throughout all of that, and or what has changed that, kind of got dumped off early on in the process?
I would say the biggest change was the person that stepped on that plane that left South Africa to the person I'm now. Still the same name, same face, maybe a bit older, a bit more gray hair, but very naive, very shy, very quiet, introvert, caring. I'm still caring, but that life experience of stepping on the plane, living abroad, serving for Queen and country back then, that changed me a lot. I'm not saying that it made me a bad person, but there was a significant change. But I think it's more so the life experience that brought that I experienced. Again, living abroad, going by myself, that was the biggest change. It may be a bit wiser, but I think with my short 7 years in the army, that's changed a lot as well. But that was expected, the fact that I left, and I knew that there wasn't any way going back. It would have been foolish to think that I would stay the same person, the same character. I knew it was time for a change, and I knew that I would go through this journey of change. But I think the person that they knew, my family, my mom, my dad, as a different person now,
Mhm.
much wiser, a lot of life experience, been through a lot. Yeah, so I think that is the biggest change.
It's interesting that you're so aware of the fact that you are going to undergo change. I was very, very arrogant when I joined the Navy, and I feel like I don't think anything was going to change. Like I was kind of like looking for this kind of higher purpose, but I was kind of anticipating that I would be a little bit of the same person, but just kind of
Yeah.
a different job, so to speak. You also joined a little bit later though, so maybe that kind of, I joined at 21, and I think I had the year that you joined at 26.
Yeah, correct.
So you had a little bit more life perspective, maybe, about kind of you had already gone through that kind of maybe the young arrogant man stage there.
Yeah, it definitely helped, I think, because I was 26, I was always in my intake, in my platoon and section, and our training staff, he was, I think we were the same age, but that definitely helped a hell of a lot. The life experience, the maturity helped a lot. But I think for me at that stage, I was ready. I knew things would change, and it's going, and it would change rather quickly and at a rapid rate of knots. And I thought, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. Even though week one, day one of basic training, I knew things would change, and I was accepting of that because I remember the changes in my dad when he went to on his operational tours in the South African border war and come back, and over the years, and I knew I would change, but I welcomed the change. I thought, that's what I wanted. I joined for specific reasons, and I thought I want that, bring on the change, and I just went for it.
What do you think that you were after changing the most? Was it just kind of like a work ethic thing? Was it a values? Was it like maybe aspirational of kind of like maybe living up to dad's shoes?
Well, I always wanted to follow in his footsteps. When I grew up, I remember seeing him in the uniform, and it's the uniform that stood out, the fact that he served in the South African police. And it was like looking up to a big idol, a hero, just that image of him in the uniform. And I knew that was what I wanted to copy. And I felt there was a sense of purpose in that sort of dream, in that I wanted to follow.
Do you have any other heroes that you maybe look up to other than him?
Growing up, I was very much into weightlifting and bodybuilding growing up, purely because for me it was a way of working on my self-confidence, because it's a sport where it's just you. You don't have to rely on anyone else. You don't have to go and work together as a team, just yourself. And I was more than happy to do that, very introvert, very shy. So I would go into the gym, train all day, and I got into bodybuilding, and I looked up to all the sort of, famous bodybuilders at the time. And I think Arnold Schwarzenegger, was one of them, looking up, like, I wanted to be like him, but I think that was a dream that I knew I would never ultimately reach, that was quite high, but I just loved going in and training and try to copy certain traits or certain things that he achieved in the past. But deeper down, I knew joining the British Army, that was a ultimate, the ultimate sort of dream, because I felt like, there was a sense of purpose, and there was a duty that I had to go in and follow.
How do you think about hero selection now? And maybe your interests and kind of priorities have changed quite a bit, especially taking on a family, and when you have mouths to feed that are reliant on you, it kind of brings it into reality and check there. Who do you look up to now, and how do you think that we ought to go about finding those people that are actually worth looking up to?
Vastly different nowadays. There's not a specific one person I look up to and I want to try and copy. There will be a variety of people that I would then look at and see what they've achieved and how they've overcome certain problems, whether it be mental health, whether it be physical, whether it be spiritual, whether it be work ethic, career-wise. So then if there's certain people, personnel in that field, I will then look at how they've achieved that. What did they do to overcome that? Whether it be parenting, I'll be looking at maybe people that's a dad, and then what they do to be better at that, job. It's a job. It's to be a better dad. So there's not one specific person that I look up to, and I think that's my idol, that's my hero. There will be maybe a group of people, or that I think that I might try to copy, because obviously successful, and they've achieved it by doing certain things. So then I'll try to copy those things, or mold it and change it to suit me, in my daily routine. How can I be better at my job, at work? How can I be a better dad, and focus on those things to be successful. So it's not a specific person that I look up to and think I would like to meet them. Thinking now, would I like to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger? It might be nice, but if I don't, no big deal, because there's the old saying, you don't want to meet your heroes, because you might be feel like laid down. So, and I don't want that dream to be broken, that boyhood dream of growing up looking at him. And because I remember sitting in my mom's and my dad's house growing up, at this big book, I think it was called the Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding, and I would spend hours there looking at the pictures. We had no internet then, I had no mobile phone, nothing, and I would just look at this picture and study and think, how can I develop the same chest muscles and in the back and delts and biceps and triceps? How can I be successful? And I would spend hours trying to do the same, be successful. And I think, okay, cool. In order to be successful in that, I need to go to Venice Beach. And that was a dream that I had. I thought, okay, cool. I'm going to go to Venice Beach. I'm going to go work in Gold's Gym, work in Venice and in World's Gym, back then, and I had a game plan that I wanted to follow. And when I left South Africa, it was purely to go to America. And somehow the universe steered me away from that towards the UK. So nowadays, no, it's not just one particular person. It's a variety of people. So I would look into how to be a better parent, and I would go and seek that out.
I think that don't meet your heroes piece is such good advice, because a lot of times when we see somebody who is at the top of their craft in a certain area, maybe it's Arnold, maybe it's another famous bodybuilder, they maybe they're top 1% of that thing, but behind the scenes, the sacrifice that they've sacrificed probably that other 99% of the things in their life. Maybe that's their relationships, or whatever, their sleep, their health, whatever it may be, to get to this top 1%. And those are, like, ironically, the people that we look up to, but in reality, we wouldn't want to model after them at all, just because that it's unrealistic, and kind of some more balance to your life is maybe more admirable.
Oh, totally. Exactly. I mean, thing is that there's many things that is done and that I would not want to do. But yeah, I think looking up, it's definitely helped me to reach personal goals and dreams, and it's helped a hell of a lot. But I think deeper down, it wasn't the main goal and the main dream. It definitely helped. It definitely steered. But again, there was one character. There was one. I was young back then. I had these big dreams, and I've changed over the years. Living abroad, working abroad, and learning the hard way. That definitely helped, and I thrived on that. And I loved it, and it's made me a much wiser and better person.
What do you think about your goals changing over time? I think that, like, I know just in the few years that I have kind of considered myself a functioning, responsible adult, my goals have changed. And sometimes, like, it feels like you're maybe giving up on them, but it's a tough thing to square, because it kind of feels like you're turning your back on something. Was there, like, a particular moment that you realized that, like, bodybuilding wasn't going to be your thing? You were talking about the universe kind of guiding you to
Oh yeah,
what your next mission was.
Oh yeah, totally. It was, I think at that stage when I realized I couldn't get into America. Well, not couldn't. It was difficult then because I left South Africa in 2000, and going to Europe or going to the UK was easier. And I think because it was difficult, not impossible, because it was difficult, that I thought, okay, well, it for me it back then I thought, oh, that's impossible. That's a big hurdle. I can't get over it. I don't have enough self-confidence. And I thought, no, it's just too difficult. I'm going to look away. I'm going to maybe try to go to the UK and from there going to the States. And I think it was that specific moment that there was a guiding light or a source that steered me away, that I thought is, well, thinking back now, it was good that it happened that way. That steered me away from that, because I went over to the UK and experienced a lot there, trying to find a job, trying to pay the rent, learning the hard way, and that helped me a lot. But yeah, that it was that moment that the universe, powers to be, steered me away from that and said, go over to the UK. Because I thought going over to the UK and then from there going over into the States would be easier. But it was that bit that it was difficult. So I thought, oh, that's difficult. I can't do it. And so instead of getting over the hurdle and working harder and finding ways to get there, I didn't, because I thought it's just too difficult. So I thought I'll put that in the too hard basket and then move on and go over to the UK, because it's easier. And I had friends there, and I thought, cool, they would be able to help me and guide me. But you get there and they help you for a little bit, but you still have to struggle by yourself and find things, so find your way and find what works for you.
It's such a difficult balance, thinking about the traditional wisdom of what everybody says to be great at something, to kind of pursue what you think may be your destiny or your goal or whatever you want to call it. You just got to pound the pavement and go hard at it and be willing to give everything up and just block everything else out. And that certainly, I think that that's true, but along the way, there are these interesting life paths that kind of open up along the way, and some of which may be even actually better than the path that you're currently down, but you have to actually be open to seeing them. Like if you're just so kind of narrow-minded, and I hate even saying narrow-minded, because it takes a tremendous amount of discipline to do that, to just focus on your one thing. But I guess my question there is, how do you think about being diligent and pursuing your goal while maintaining an open mind to new opportunities?
Well, I would say that, yeah, it was great going through all those challenges and ups and downs, but yeah, I had to pick the things that worked for me, that would help me on my way. And it was going over to the UK. That was the thing that sort of helped me. And then I would then I picked things that would be suitable for me, that would work for me at the time. And I think the time spent there helped hell of a lot. And it made me wiser. It gave me a life experience, the fact that I had to do everything by myself, and I think had I gone over to America straight from South Africa, it would have been much different, but I think the path that I followed, that I walked on, it was worth it. All the ups and downs, all the times where I struggled with to find a job and to budget the money, and that definitely that was a phenomenal experience, just living abroad there and living that life and growing richer.
One of the reasons a lot of people join the military is for this, to travel, particularly in the Navy. Everybody says that they want to travel and see new places or whatever. But I think that the more underrated part of the travel that you get to do is the exposure that you get to new ways of thinking. Coming to a new country as a young man, I can't imagine the amount of just bombardment, like mentally, that you were probably going through, to just new ways of living, new ideas, new ways of dressing. Like everything, I'm sure, was completely new to you. And it's kind of overwhelming, because it makes you rethink, like, well, what about all of this stuff that I've just grown up like believing so and holding so true? It kind of, I think that that's good for people.
Oh, totally. For me, it was sensory overload. When I started my basic training, because I left South Africa in 2000 and I went over to the UK, worked in London and in those places, and it was in 2003 that I joined. So it was, I was still very much new to living abroad, but then joining up, it was sensory overload. It was a different culture, even though they spoke English. All with different accents, and my training staff, they were, I think, from a Scottish regiment, so I had to really focus hard in trying to understand what he's saying and yelling, and you had to do things fast paced because it's, it's basic training. So it was sensory overload, this whole environment, but I wanted to be there and I knew that I would be successful. Deep down, I knew. And I welcomed the hardship. I welcomed all the crap times, all the crawling and running and crawling in dirt and all the press ups and all the running and endless hours on the ranges. I welcomed with open arms because I felt I was at home. It was home for me. It was a place that I knew I wanted to be, and I knew it would only be a small fraction of my time, in the Defence Force or in the Army. And it was definitely, it was a lot to take in. But then again, I welcomed all the difficulties, all the hardship that was thrown at me at the time.
Were you accustomed to a state of kind of general discomfort already before you got there?
Yeah, definitely. It was the couple of years before being exposed to having to do everything by myself, who to trust, what to do, where to go, what to do. Before that, I had that support in place. I had that around me, but going over, it was either you do it and be successful and have a meal tonight, or if you don't pay your rent, you're going to be on the street, and I've had many times where the owner would then knock on the door and say, well, if you don't pay rent, I'm going to boot you out because there's other people that want accommodation, and I thought, no worries, great, I'll work, and after my shift, I'll pay you at the end of the week. You're not going to kick me out, you'll get your money. And I never placed myself in that position of where I'll be kicked out. I always worked hard to get that done and to be successful, but I learned the hard way. It was difficult, but it made me wiser, so to speak.
That level of discomfort, as we call it, or kind of just being hungry, kind of in another way of like you are on the edge of destruction, sort of.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how big of a motivator that is like, if this ends up kind of coming to fruition, it's going to be really, really bad. And it's shocking to me the things that you're capable of physically and mentally when you know that the alternative is really, really not good.
Oh yeah, totally. The thing is, I had for me, there was no other way. There was no plan B. There was no second option. I thought to myself, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to take it one step at a time. I want this, and I'm going to go and achieve it. In the back of my mind, I knew that after the 6 months, I'll be finished with basic training and I'll move on to my unit. For me, failing, giving up, that wasn't an option. I knew I'm going to push through this, and I watched various other people around me, giving up, crying, failing, and I pushed through injuries, and I thought, I'm not going to be back squatted where I'm going to be pushed back and spend 7 months there. Just take one day at a time and push through. For me, it was no other option. I'm going to get through this. It was a drop in the ocean. I knew that I'll be there for a short time, and then the rest of my time will be once I, hit the ground with my unit. And I knew that that's when things would start. For me, there was no other. I had no plan B. For me, it was plan A: get through this, be successful in this, pass basic training, and then move on.
How do you think that we can keep that sort of mentality, even when we're maybe not in that position. Like thinking about coming up on being a dad, like I want to be as hungry as I am now and not get kind of complacent when it comes to like providing for my family and like taking care of that. Is there any thought process or way that you think about continuing kind of strive for big things?
Yes, there is. It's things nowadays. I have to, I think, slow down and make sure that my cup is full, that I'm well mentally, physically, that I'm in a good space, because I've got my young kids looking up to me, and I need to be in a good space. And it's great just, giving to others and helping and telling my kids do this, and at work working with youth and young kids. But I need to slow down and stop and fill my cup first, and work on my mental health and my physical well-being, because how the hell can I help others if I can't help myself? So I would make sure that my nutrition is good. At times it's going to dip down, and then when I notice, hang on, I'm eating this bag of chips or I'm eating chocolate, I need to go back off. But everything in moderation, So I would then back off and then readjust and then back onto my healthy eating habits, and then I would make sure I spend time in the gym, if it's, twice or 3 times a week. At times it's difficult, I might find myself, I don't want to get up, I want to stay in bed, but then I would force myself and then get in the gym, and then I would have the best workout. Or I would make sure that I spend time reading, or I spend time with my kids, and I slow down. So I need to look in, fill my cup before I can help others, And back then when I served in the army, it was different. It was only me that I had to worry about, working on me and getting through. And I had an end goal that I wanted to reach. But nowadays it's having to slow down and look inward, okay, and say, okay, cool, my cup it's almost empty. I need to stop, fill it up, look at my nutrition. Am I sleeping enough? Am I resting enough? What's my mental health like? And if it's dipping down, I need to pay attention to that and get that fixed.
It's ironic. A lot of the things that you mentioned are many people would say like, oh, I don't have time for that. And it's like, well, I work 2 jobs and I've got a family to feed and all of these things.
Yeah,
the sacrifices that we make to take care of those around us are often the things that even allow us to continue operating. It's the sleep, it's your nutrition, it's staying physically fit. Like you have to have those things before you can even go out and think that you're going to do those things well.
It is, and I've noticed that if I don't look after myself, and then what goes wrong is not so much for me, but my kids. I can see it in my kids. If I don't spend enough time with them, if I'm grumpy, they notice, and there's a massive change in the whole environment, the whole vibe. It's just off, and that just breaks me, because they don't deserve that, They want their dad. And if I'm grumpy, if I'm in a bad mood, I a lot of times don't realize that, So my wife, she will realize that. She notice, she sees that, and then she say, well, just go to bed. You tired?
Not tired. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm not tired. I'm not grumpy. I'm good, man. It's not me. It's you. I mean, sorry. Okay. It's not me. I'm good. I'm fine. And then she will just sit there with her eyes like dinner plates, and then I realize, oh shit, it is me. But then I'm just too stubborn to admit that. And then I'll say, no, I'm good. I'm fine. And I'm there trying to, like, well, then I'll say to her, I'm not going to stand here and justify that I'm fine. It's not me. It's not me. And then she won't say a word. And then I realize, heck, it is me. I need to just go to bed. I'm tired because I've been up since 3 a.m. because I went to the gym and I trained. I had a great session. I had a great day. It was a busy day. It was productive. But then it's my kids because I get, and I'm just, I'm flat, and then my cup's empty, and I'll just sit there. And I've picked them up from school, and then I'm close to empty. I just want to sit and just get my head down and just sleep, But that's when I need to be there. I need to take them to the park, to kick the ball, to go to the playground and focus on them and their homework, And then when my wife gets home, it's even worse, So yeah, it's looking inwards. It's just putting in the time, putting in the effort.
It's funny, you look back at a lot of those times when you're somebody like your spouse or friend or somebody in that same sort of like closeness to you is kind of pointing out like, oh no, maybe you're not okay. And probably any time that you're jumping to justify like, oh, you're
Yeah, exactly.
probably, because the clear-headed, calm you is probably going to stop and think for a second
Yeah.
about like, okay, take an account. Am I okay? How am I feeling? Recognize, oh, I didn't get good sleep last night, whatever. But if you instantly jump on that defensive thing, that's probably not a good sign.
Exactly, and that happens a lot. Then I would have to physically remove myself, and then, or there's been a few times. Then something might happen. Then I say to my wife, "Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to bed now." And then she says, "Yeah, good idea." And then it's fine. And then, but I've been in a situation where I don't go to bed, and then I would stand there and I would try and argue, trying to justify things, and I'm fine, I'm good. And then it just goes from bad to worse. And then when I go to bed, I'm in bed and I'm thinking, oh shit, what have I done? And then I have a bad sleep and I wake up in the morning and then we don't talk, I don't say a thing. Then it's a bad start for the day. But yes, those moments where I have to physically remove myself, say, okay, I'm off to bed. It's me, but then I'm just too stubborn, to actually point the finger inwards. But I deep down, I know it's me, because I'm tired. My cup is empty. I need to fill my cup. I need to get some rest, or just readjust and think, well, is it a good idea to get up early every morning, or can I just get up very early, say twice a week, and spend the other times with my family and making sure my kids, that they've got the dad there, that their dad's not half asleep or grumpy or just, just full of nonsense.
It's funny. I'm imagining from a parenting perspective too. Your kids are like, you're putting them down for bed or a nap or something, and they're just screaming and crying like, I'm not tired, like, and you're like, oh yeah, you are. And it's funny
Yeah,
because we're the same way. It's like
exactly.
that's the adult version of like, oh, I don't want to take a nap.
Yeah. But the thing is, and then when they go to bed, they just fall asleep instantly, But that
Yeah.
they're tired, because they get all grumpy, and then they fight, because my boy will then tease his younger sister, and they will end up fighting, and they won't listen. And I say, well, it's good. Maybe you should go to bed, or someone's tired. We say that a lot, and they will say, I'm not tired, I'm not grumpy, But then I'm exactly the same. So yeah, it was just the adult version of it.
I think that there's a lot of interesting ways that we can kind of intervene in our own lives, because we almost have to find ways to predict how we're going to act and like kind of do something to counter it when we're thinking clearly. I know something that I have had a lot of success with is if I start to get frustrated or kind of need a reset, I'd probably take like 2 or 3 walks a day, and like we'll just go for like a 15-minute walk just around the block. And for some reason that kind of like gets you like a new baseline, gets you like kind of realizing where you are, kind of emotionally. Am I thinking clearly? Am I tired? What do I need to, because we're a lot of times taught to just kind of keep charging forward without much mental account for if we're going to operate at 100% or not.
Yeah, I told you, I find lately, ever since, I moved from the UK over to New Zealand, I find that I operate better, I work better, I'm a better person if I get out there and I do some type of cardio, some type of reflecting. And for me, it is when I go for a big walk, an hour or hour and a half, and I can reflect, I can then spend time with nature, breathing the fresh air, and then just reflect on everything, and then to spend time with me, and then and recover and regroup and focus, and then I'm a better person. I operate better. But like when I served in the army, it was full charge. It was nonstop, 24/7. You're always on edge, always something happening. You can never really fully relax. I could just, many times I could feel my shoulders all tensed up. I could never fully just relax, and I'm having to, ever since I've left, I'm having to force myself just to slow things down. And I can feel like my shoulders, it's always been tight, the tension in my neck, my delts, it's always there. And I'm having to slow down and think, okay, slow down, just relax. And I can feel the tension just ease. So having to go for these walks, having to look inward and reflect on the good things, the bad things, on things I want to do, things I haven't done, and how I can fix things, and all those things. It definitely helps so much.
When I talked with people that are still in the service, there is kind of an ongoing conversation about the mental health of people that are in the service. And like, it is absolutely no mystery to me why it's such a struggle, because there really isn't talked about. It's not encouraged. It's not, and in some respects, I get it. Like, there is a certain level of kind of readiness and meeting the mission requirements that have to be there. But when it comes to that kind of like off time, when there never really is off time, it doesn't surprise me that there's such a struggle with that.
Yeah, for me personally, it was never spoken about, even when on my 2 deployments to Iraq, on my 1 deployment to Afghan, it was never spoken. It wasn't a thing that I think it wasn't spoken about. It wasn't something that they would say, okay, go and see a therapist, or see a doctor, or see someone, or let's talk about it. They sit down. It wasn't a thing. You would rather want to go and have a few beers with your mates. It wasn't a thing that was worked on or looked at. It wasn't even a topic back then. Maybe nowadays it's different, but for me, it was nonstop. If you're not working hard, you're playing hard. In the accommodation, drinking with your friends, or you on the range, zeroing your weapon system, ready for the next operational tour, or for the next exercise. It wasn't something that they encouraged at all back then.
You've talked about your start writing while on deployment, and kind of the evolution of that in other interviews. Would you attribute writing as a big part of like you figuring that out for yourself?
Yes. When I did that, it was, at the time, it was just to log down certain events, but then subconsciously it turned into something so much bigger, and it was a explosion of emotion, of thoughts and feelings on paper that I had no idea where it came from, and thinking back, it was a good thing. It was a release. It was a big help back then, and I wished that I've done more of it. Looking back over the 7 years, I should have done more of it, like a journal. But again, anything like that, it wasn't encouraged. It wasn't discussed. It was because when I started that, it was something that I kept to myself. I kept it quiet, and after I filled that journal, I placed that in a shoebox, and I left it for many years. But yeah, I wish that I've done it. It was done more often, but for whatever reason, it wasn't.
You've talked about your experience when you kind of answered the call from Dead Reckoning Collective to submit your work to that. I know I have to imagine that there was some hesitancy around doing that, kind of fear of putting your work out there, or fear of just probably countless things, and doing things publicly is very hard. Just in general, you're kind of open to criticism, and I don't know, kind of with anything, fear of maybe looking dumb to some respect too. Looking back, how crucial do you think that being public with your work has been to maybe your improvement as a writer, and or maybe the publishing of your book?
Yeah, it was really difficult. But it was crucial because it's taken me on a path that I dreamt of, to get out there in the limelight, but I always had this, low self-confidence, thinking, no, I can't do it. It's just too difficult. But then people would see it in me, but I won't see it in myself. but then it gave me exposure to improving that craft, working with Keith from Dead Reckoning Collective. And it's still, I've improved somewhat, but there's so much more to improve, so much more to work on. And it's taken me outside my comfort zone. It's taken me to a place that I knew would improve me as a writer. It would help me, but for me, it was something that I mentally placed in the too hard basket. I'm not going to even try, but it's taken me to a place that I'm grateful now that I've been there. Because I remember when I submitted the initial poems to them, because they put out a email or an ad for veteran writers to submit or put in poems for their second anthology of poets, warrior poets. Again, there was this instant connection, this instant, yeah, I can do that. And I did it. I wrote the 3 poems, but it sat in the email, and all I had to do was just click send. But I hesitated. I thought, no, I can't do it. They're going to laugh at me. And I told no one at that stage, that I wrote something, and for the fear of being laughed at, for the fear of having the stuff out there, things that's personal. And it's one day at work, I thought, I need to send this. And once I clicked send, it was this, I could feel the tension release in my shoulders, in my neck. It was this big release of, okay, it's done. And I felt better. And then I moved on, with the day.
Did you submit those poems to them for the purpose of like thinking that maybe one day I like want to have a book or something like that? Or was it more personal? Like, hey, this is something that I need to overcome, of just like this willingness to kind of like think about failing or being scared.
I would say deep down, it was something I needed to overcome, to put it out there, what I've experienced, and to deal with things, and how to deal with things. At that stage, it wasn't anything. I had no dream or no goal set to put a book out. I had no content. I had only the 3 poems, but I think it was so much more. It was deeper. I had to overcome something, put it out there. And I think once I've done that, then there was instant, it was like an audible click. It was something that occurred, something happened, and then I thought, okay, it's gone now. And then I thought, what else can I write about, And then I reflect back on what I experienced in Afghan, and then that's when it all started, Then I started to write more, reflect more. And then I went back looking for that journal that I kept in Afghan. And I think I wrote a few poems in there, but it was more about what I experienced, what I felt then, because I after that tour, I left it in a shoebox with a couple of photos with my medals, and it was locked away. It was stored away. It wasn't until, I think it was in 2019 that I submitted those 3 poems. And then I went back and I looked at the journal, and that's where it all it was just this big waterfall of emotion, thoughts, and feelings. And then I just thought, okay, I need to get this out on paper or on my laptop. And then that was the start.
It's funny how that like first kind of click of like traction, I want to call it, but it's like, you had just submitted or whatever, but like it was internal traction. It was, you feel the gears turning of progress, internal progress. Was it at that time you were like, okay, it's, I need to start putting this on paper, and like this needs to be a book? Or can you kind of walk through like your path from getting there to just last week, like the book being published?
Well, things at that stage, after I've submitted those, the 3 poems, I thought, okay, cool, it's done now. And I couldn't care less if I received a email saying that they won't be accepting the 3 poems, or they will. For me, it was a release. The feeling I had was so much bigger than wanting to get the poems, published. For me, it was bigger. And then I started to write more, and then for whatever reason, I placed it. I made it available on my Instagram account, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to put it out, I'm going to write it in a book and then put it on my laptop, and then type it out and set it up. But then I kept it quiet. I told no one. It wasn't on my Facebook account. It was super quiet. And then I just started, submitting more and more. And I thought, instead of putting out things that's not me, I'm going to put out stuff that's me. So all these thoughts and feelings, all these bits of poetry, I will then put out. And then it wasn't until a British veteran came across my work and then said that he wanted to self-publish a book, which will be a collection of stories and poems by British veterans. Do I want to submit work? And I thought, yep, I'll do it. Yes. Again, there was audible. I can do that. I feel comfortable with that. Again, way out of my comfort zone, because why do I want to go and put what I've been through on paper and then have it published by someone else and putting out photos of me? But I was fine with that, and then I said yes. And then he self-published, and then 2 more books. There was a collection called the Veteran Collective. He self-published those books. And then it wasn't much later than I thought, well, hang on, I could put out my own book. I could put out my own things. And I looked into the Veteran Collective, and then, they published exclusively for veteran writers, But then I thought, hang on, I'm a South African born British veteran now living in New Zealand. Will they even look at my stuff, And then so I went out and I thought, okay, cool, I need to get it all in, make sure I got enough content to actually submit, Then I thought, I've got no idea what I'm doing. I need to go and look at the meaning behind the word manuscript. I had no idea what that was, I thought there was a script. I thought it's something they use in Hollywood movies, but no, once and they've got a very strict set of guidelines for anyone that submits stuff, and I looked at that, and it was many hours trying to get the whole thing set up. And then I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to do this again, where it's on my comfort zone. But again, it felt right. It felt there was this connection of, yep, I'm happy with this. I felt confident that I could submit something. And it was the same as that initial email. Once I had my manuscript and it was all there, and I thought, okay, I've got enough to make a book. Again, it was in my inbox and it sat there for a while. The whole manuscript and all the email, all the information that they required. Again, I could feel my shoulders tense up. I could feel like, the confidence slipping. So I thought, before it slips totally, I need to click send. And I thought, okay, cool, it's gone now. And the rest is history.
What do you think is the biggest takeaway that you've had from hitting send there to publishing? What do you think you've learned the most?
Keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. And knowing that I'm going to get to a stage of, I need to make a decision. Either I do it or I don't. And it's just moving forward, getting outside my comfort zone, because I knew that I won't grow in my comfort zone. I'll grow and experience things outside my comfort zone. And that's exactly what occurred. Exactly what happened. That I moved on, and not hesitate, and knowing that I have the ability to do things, because it's happened my whole life where people would see it in me. They would see I would have the capability or the ability to do things, but for whatever reason, I won't see it in myself. And that's the thing that I hate. But then I moved on from that. It's about just do it. Just click send. And if you're unsuccessful, so what? Who cares? Just try again. And I had stuff that I submitted to them on other occasions, which they declined. I submitted stuff to other publications which got declined. And I thought, okay, I'm going to keep those emails so I can look back and I can see, okay, cool. Yep, I've got these things that got declined, not accepted, but I've got other things that they accepted. It just having to have the guts just to push through and to just move forward one step at a time.
It certainly seems to me that there is a direct correlation between personal growth and the willingness to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You really need to be okay with hurting and feeling embarrassed, and drawing to kind of like the physical analogy of like physical fitness, like growing muscle, it hurts. Like you come back from a workout and you physically hurt.
Yeah.
And in the same way, like working through publishing work, especially creative stuff, where you guys must have gone through hundreds of revisions on the book, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah, loads. I mean, I initially I submitted things, and I worked with Keith, and he's a phenomenal editor. He's a phenomenal person. He helped so much, and I've learned so much. And going through the whole process of explaining to me that certain things need to change, like titles or certain stanzas that I need to, or that he thought for the book, for what would work for me and for them and for us, need to change or taken out, or I had to, rewrite a few stanzas, or then he would say, the next 4 or 5 poems would need to go, and it was a very interesting time, because you would have all these things, all these thoughts, feelings, stuff that's personal to you, and someone else is looking through it and telling you, not this one, not that one, we'll keep this one, I love this one, this one's great, this line needs to be replaced, you need to rewrite this, or how about we just take it out completely, and just change things up. And then obviously there's a reason behind the changes. It was a very interesting process to go through, but it was phenomenal with it, and looking back, it's been a great journey.
Well, my hat is off to you. I really enjoyed reading it. I am certainly no literary critique or know much about that space, but I really enjoyed reading it, and it reads like a novel to me. Like there's a very clear progression and like kind of this journey that you're brought on through the whole thing, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm very thankful, and I'm sure many of the listeners who have also read it will be thankful for you being willing to push send on that.
I appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a great feeling and a weird feeling at the same time, knowing that my words, my experiences, it's out of my hands and it's now available, in the world. It's gone. It's not mine anymore. It's out there, But again, it's all of that is way outside my comfort zone. It's sometimes I think it's not me. Many times I want to revert to being quiet, being shy, staying in my lane, not bother anyone, and just do my own thing. But then again, what kind of life is that? So thank you.
Want to kind of start to close out the conversation and hear about some of your work now. You are working with a high school program, taking kids that are maybe in a disadvantaged area or home life and helping them, growing them, teaching them. Can you kind of explain what you do there and why that's important?
Sure. The last 7 years, I've been working with youth, high school kids, and a program. It's a military design program, working with some kids that's at risk youth, and then you find a minority of kids that they want to use that as a pathway, say, to get into the armed forces or police or fire brigade. Helping some of these kids, because again, a lot of them, they're from a very broken, home life, been exposed to alcohol, drugs, violence at a very young age. And then there's a fraction that they find they're good kids, they just need some guidance, or they want to eventually get into the defense force or police. So this program is designed for them, or for those that want to use that, But then again, I've been exposed to some of these kids where they've got no father figure, they've got nothing. They've been exposed to gangs, to violence at such a young age, and they've really struggled, And I think the program's helped them, or it's guided them to show them they do have a choice. They can resort and to a better life than having to stay in that particular sort of field. So it's the program is designed to help those kids, or help those that want to get into the defense force and police or fire brigade. So it's military designed. There's military history, military fitness, and so I've been facilitating and running these programs for the last 7 years, working with kids ages between starting 14 all the way to 17, 18. Again, something that I never thought I would do, working with high school kids, instructing and teaching and standing in front of a group and telling them about self-confidence, about getting outside your comfort zone, and then knowing that this is outside my comfort zone, standing in front of a big group and they're judging you and they're looking at you, and you're trying to build that that gap, trying to build that relationship with them, trying to get that trust, which is super difficult with some of these kids because they just block off. Once they build the brick wall, it's just so hard to get over, to get to know them, because they might be street smart, but they don't have the life experience. They put up this fake persona, this fake front that, yeah, they tough and all that, but once you break down the wall and get to know them, they're just this young innocent kid. They haven't got any self-confidence. They're afraid, but they don't want to show it. And working with these kids, it's taught me a lot, but it's been phenomenal.
You said that you would have been like, never thought that you would have like ended up with this type of job or teaching kids like this. And it's so ironic because you're hearing a bit about your story today and just what I know of you prior, like you're probably the perfect person to do it. Just knowing like some of these things, and that makes it so much better.
Yeah.
Like,
I suppose,
you can speak to, you've got that personal experience, and I have no doubt that they probably hear some of your stories and kind of your learnings and have more buy-in into you because of that.
Yeah, and I think they see that because they smart when it comes to the street, when it comes to when someone is fake, or if someone is pretending, or someone is just, or they're just reading from a book, or they're making things up. But as soon as you're genuine and you build that trust, you can see in the kids, you can see the body language, the way they're sitting, the way they're looking. And as soon as you got them, then there's again the audible click. Okay, cool, I've got your attention, and then just the way they talk to you when they see you before class or after class or in the street, and because on the program they call me Staff Johnson. And then I say to them, before school, after school, if you see me in the street or in school, just call me Neville, but they don't, because they've got that respect, and some of them, even years later, people that I taught or instructed, some of these kids, they've got their own kids now, and then when I do bump into them, they still call me Staff Johnson. And I thought, no, it's Neville, it's fine. How are you? And then they would cross the road and come and see me or speak to me, and then some of them tried to connect on social media, and they would follow me, and it's a great feeling. And then there's some of them that they just refuse to connect and build, and I think that's where there should be more programs or more help for those, But ultimately, it's something that I never thought I would do, standing in front of a bunch of high school kids, in a class of, say, 30 or 40, and trying to build that trust, trying to get their attention, trying to get them to quiet down, trying to get them to stay off their devices, just to sit up straight, to push the chairs in, and to go into military drill, to stay in sync or march at the same time. It's a hard job, but it's so fulfilling in the end, once everything is in place and they do listen to you, and you've got that trust and you've got that relationship, but it's the hard work in the beginning, but yeah, it takes a special person to do that, to build that relationship with them, to get them to listen up and pay attention, and yeah, they're very street smart, and they can see through you if you're talking BS, and they will be the one running the class, not you, or they would just walk out.
Working with these kids, how much do you think that their outcomes have been tied to their past environments that they've grown up in?
Well, loads. It's massive. You could see it in the whole demeanor. I've worked with some kids that have been exposed to weapons, that's seen violence, that's seen other people getting shot, and then when you see the change and you see the outcome, and it's a good outcome, and it's just phenomenal. It makes me happy knowing that I contributed a small bit to that person's life, because many times in the past, and they would go to school, but they won't go to any class but mine. And I think for me, that's when I've got them engaged. They're in school, they're in a safe environment, but seeing the change and see how that affects them in a positive way is phenomenal, because all they want is someone just to listen to them. All they want is someone they can look up to in a positive way. And they need that, and there's not a lot of that, because once they fall through the cracks and they disappear, that's when they go and they join the gangs, because the gangs want to teach them values, but it's the wrong values. The gangs will use them, abuse them, and discard them. And it's sad.
There are some interesting parallels, I think, in thinking about being a product of environment. We've got these kids that are growing up in kind of really bad areas, and kind of all it takes is kind of a certain catalyst to kind of unlock like a different path. We were talking earlier about knowing what path to take, and you're dealing with people who maybe don't exactly, they don't have control over that yet, and being able to intervene early on in those kids' lives to kind of alter that and show them something different. And I think that parallels a lot of the military, like your history. Anybody who's listening who has served, the military sometimes can be that catalyst, but sometimes there's also a need for an additional thing outside of that, where your environment can be a really, really good thing for you, or it can be poor for you as well.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I think for those kids being exposed to that, and you can show them, listen, you do have a choice. You don't have to go down that path of gangs, violence, all that. You can go through this path. And let me tell you about this. But before I tell you about the actual path, let me tell you what I've experienced and what I've gone through. Let me tell you about my mistakes, and I'm going to tell you how to avoid them, so you won't make the same mistake. And where you are sitting right now, I've been there, and I know what it feels like. I've been in that situation. And let me tell you about this. And then you can see that connection. You can see that, hang on, you've got them, you've got the trust, but then to build the trust, you get the trust. It's so difficult.
If you had to sum up your kind of life's experience, military, time with your family, time working with these kids, and kind of boil that down to one big takeaway that we can kind of implement in our lives, what do you think that would be?
Yeah, that's a good question. The one thing that pops up, I would say, if there's an opportunity that presents itself, don't let it go by. Whether it be good or bad, whether it's from the bad you'll learn, but if there's an opportunity for you to improve, to be a better person, to learn something, go for it. I've had many opportunities in my life that I hesitated and I never went for it, and I regret it somewhat. But it's the opportunities that went by that I never went for. I was standing there, you could see the opportunity. It was coming, it's approached, and then there it goes, it's gone. It's not going to come back. It's not going to present itself again. It's having to take hold of the opportunity and signing up with Dead Reckoning Collective, working with Keith and Tyler, going into the military, working with these young kids, with the youth. It's opportunities I went for. It's opportunities. It's difficult, but you had to put in the time and effort. You have to put in the time. You have to put in the work. Same with being a parent. It's an opportunity that came in, and I went for it. I knew it was going to be difficult. But then it's the journey. It's the journey, going through it. It's the opportunities that I went for. I thought I'm going to go for it. I'm going to jump on that wild ride, and it's going to be a wonderful wild ride, and just go for it and learn something. And then at the same time, tell my kids. And again, they learn from me, that my own kids, and then the youth I work with. Again, hopefully they can learn from me. Hopefully they can go on and take bits and pieces away. But it's the opportunities. Don't let them go by, because once they go, they're gone.
I got a couple questions I got fielded on Instagram just from sharing. If you submitted a question, I really appreciate it. Or two that I wanted to hit here. Thoughts on the PB Abate book club?
Oh, yeah. Oh, PBA, yeah.
Shout out to PBA.
Yay. Place to be. Go and follow them, join them. It's a great organization, especially the book club.
What are you guys reading right now? What's the
something by was it the author Hemingway, For Whom the Bell Tolls. Something I've missed I think the first two Zoom sessions, but that's the one that we reading right now. And then every now and again there's a Zoom session where everyone gets together and discuss the previous chapters.
Awesome. I'll be sure to include a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, please do.
Another question from Instagram. This is actually something I usually ask anyway, but so I'm glad that it was asked. What are questions that you wish that people would ask you?
That is a good question, man. It's all the military questions, which is great you ask. And I think we spoke about this earlier. A lot of people want to know, how many doors you've kicked in and how many rounds you've put down range and so forth. But I think it's the other things that I think at this stage in my life, it's the things that make you tick, the things that makes you happy, the things that fills your cup, so to speak. It's all good and well, talking about the past, but my military, it was a small chapter. It was of my life. It was just one of many characters, so to speak. But I suppose it's things that make me tick now in the present. My family, passions, writing, and I think it's those things. And I think writing is one of the many passions. Working with the young kids, having a family, I would reckon would be nice. But I'm not going to shy away if people want to ask about the army and prior to that.
And then one last final question for you. This is coming from me. What can the listeners and/or myself do to be useful to you?
Oh, useful, man. There's again another great question. Useful. Sure. Probably advertise my book, and advertise Debt Reckoning Collective. That's one. One.
Go pick up a copy.
Talk about Debt Reckoning Collective. Talk about BP Abate and what they do. It's a great organization. The fact that when I asked if I could be a member, I thought Tom Schumann, which is the main kahuna, the main person that started the whole organization, I thought he's not going to say yes. It's more of an American run organization for American veterans. And I thought, but I like the idea of having a book club, of getting together and talking about it and getting veterans together, and not just a book club. They've got I think a fight club, hunting and so forth, But he said, yeah, if you've served, the lines are open, and talk about that and talk about Pipa Abate and just talk to one another, being open, talk about my book, talk about Debt Reckoning Collective. I would say that.
That's a pretty easy ask around these parts. You're among friends on all of those subjects. I'll be sure to include links to all of those things in the show notes. Neville, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the great chats. It's a lot of times it's way again out of my comfort zone, but sitting down and discussing this and talking this and recording it is great. And then something for my kids to maybe listen to one day or see one day. So yeah, thank you and appreciate that.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. Your listenership helps me better educate people like you and the rest of our nation's military, both past and present, on building a successful life outside of military service. If you're looking for more ways the top vets are leading more effective lifestyles, building businesses, and using the resources designed specifically for you, press here for a selection of some of the best clips. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date, and I will be talking with you soon.